Good Yantif. Have you noticed over the past 6 months how easy it is to forget what day it is? Someone might say, "What's today? Is it Monday?" And someone else might answer and say, "Nope, it's actually Tuesday." When in fact, it's really Thursday. Time just doesn't seem to pass in the same way that it used to. I mean, do you remember last year at this time we thought we were living in dangerous times? It's incredible to think about that now, and not because we were wrong either. Last year was dangerous. It's just that everything has gotten so much worse in ways most of us never saw coming. Last year, Jews around the world were asking, can we be safe in our synagogue buildings on the holidays? And now we have an answer. Of course, we can't be safe, though not for the reasons that we feared. This year, the question is, since we can't be physically together in our synagogue, how do we do the high holidays? How are we supposed to feel what we need to feel? How do we find our connection to our history, our ancestors who made us who we are? Well, I think we're all really trying. But I wonder if we could talk to ourselves, our 57, 80 selves a year ago, what would we tell them? What would we say? A few months ago, Canadian comic Julie Noki put out a viral video that is supposed to take place in January of this year. Julie is sitting at her kitchen table reading a book when she suddenly looks up, and there's a person who looks exactly like her sitting across from her. "Who are you?" she gasps. "I'm Julie from 3 months in the future," the visitor replies, explaining that she has come to warn present-day Julie about what's coming, although, she says, because of the butterfly effect, she can only give a few loose details. So after some back and forth, she advises Julie of January to invest all her money in a conferencing app called Zoom. "Trust me," she says. And she recommends a visit to Costco as soon as possible to buy lots of toilet paper and other paper products. And she urges Julie to get a dog. But Julie replies that she loves dogs, but can't get one because she's going to be traveling so much. Her future self looks at her open mouth for a moment and then bursts out laughing. "Oh, no, you don't. You won't be working." Now, January, Julie becomes really frightened. What in the world is going to happen? "Look," her future self explains, "I know it sounds scary, but it's really not that bad. For you, I mean. For some people, it's... But for you, I mean, would you rather be in a busy shopping mall or at home on the couch watching Netflix? See? You're going to be just fine. Just fine. For a lot of us. But we are not going to be the same at all. In all likelihood, we will never be the same again. And that is so disconcerting. But welcome to what it means to be Jewish. I mean, for centuries, Jews have lived in times and places where too often life was incredibly uncertain. Any day, our ancestors might be faced with an order to convert or die, or their children might be kidnapped and inducted into the Russian army, or pogrom might come swooping down on them, or they might starve over the winter, or a plague might break out, leaving nothing but death and grief in its wake. That's the world that gave shape to these high holy days. And the Jewish calendar, which offers refreshment and renewal with each new moon and with each Shabbat, helped our ancestors endure this reality. The Jewish holidays are landmarks on our journey as a people and also as individuals. The rituals we practice and the stories we tell on these holidays awaken us to the odyssey our souls undertake as they make their way through life. And this yearly process is often called a cycle, but that's not really the right word. I mean, think about it. each year, as we arrive at a holiday, the rituals are essentially the same, but the earth has changed, our country has changed. We very often have changed the most. Births, weddings, graduations, divorces, illness, deaths. It's more than a cycle, which is a more predictable repetition or process. No, instead, it's a spiral. Right? We go round and round, upward, according to the changes in ourselves and around us. And this distinction is particularly obvious in times like the present, when we are aware that we are unlikely to return to the world we used to think of as normal. And this realization can give us all a lot of anxiety. But the good news is that while this sensation may be new to us, it's familiar to our Jewish culture and religion. Our sages teach that teshuvah, turning, repentance, addresses this very dilemma. I mean, what does it mean when you can't return to the way things were before? But when you do teshuvah, when you repent, when you make amends, you are forever changed. That's the idea. If teshuvah is deep and real, you are different and hopefully better. You've learned, you've grown, you repaired. You have, as Viktor Frankl might say, found new meaning in your life. And this spiraling works both on an individual and a collective level, moving as we have prayed for generations in a direction where ultimately the world may be redeemed. And Judaism teaches that it is our job on this planet to bring about this redemption in partnership with God. Which brings us to this evening's purpose, and in particular to the Kol Nidre, which Cantor Grossman sang so beautifully. Few prayers generate more questions than Kol Nidre. I know, because around here I'm the one who's supposed to be able to answer them. And I can't answer all the questions tonight, but let's look at one of the most commonly asked questions. Why, in the season of Teshuvah, does Kol Nidre focus on the coming year rather than on the past year? We read all vows, renunciations, bans, oaths, formulas of obligation, pledges, and promises to ourselves and to God from this Yom Kippur to the next. May it approach us for good. We hereby retract. May they be undone, repealed, canceled, voided, annulled, and regarded as neither valid nor binding. Why? Why does that prayer say from this Yom Kippur to the next? Like almost everything in Judaism, there are multiple answers. Although it's still unclear exactly when this Aramaic formula was created, there's an estimate that it was in the 6th or 7th century. Originally, it did refer to oaths and obligations from the past year. This legal formulation was created to enter the year with a clean slate. But as you can imagine, Kol Nidre was quite controversial. Many said, what good is it to make any vows during the year if people don't have to fulfill it because of Kol Nidre? But the people liked this prayer, and so it was very hard to uproot it. Finally, in the 12th century, sage changed the formulation from past to future, and what Jews now chant all over the world, which still leaves us with the question about what it means. Kol Nidre, I believe, expresses our fears that even if we begin a new year with a clean slate, even our best of intentions for the new year will not be fulfilled. Now consider all that's happened since we were together in the sanctuary last Kol Nidre, in the world and in our lives. This year, more than ever, we understand Kol Nidre as a message that things may not go as planned. Life might get in the way. Your promises and path might be completely uprooted. So guess what? You already let yourself off the hook from those expectations at last Kol Nidre. But this does not mean that we don't have responsibility. We do. Judaism demands that we be responsible, that we act for the good. But Kol Nidre this year, tonight, we know that we need to let go of expectations. We don't know when the pandemic will end. We don't know what will happen in this country after the election. We have no idea what our 57, 82 selves will be dealing with. So how do we enter a new year with hopes, expectations, and promises? This Yom Kippur, as with every other, we take a breath. Remember on Rosh Hashanah, I told you all to breathe. We forgive and are forgiven. We face our mortality and we ask ourselves, am I doing what I need to do in this life, in this time? We stand together and we know that we're not alone. As we face reality, we are strengthened by our ancestors and by each other. We've done it before, more times than we might realize. Indeed, every time we return a Torah scroll to the Ark, we sing one of my favorite parts of our liturgy. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu kekedem. Right, these words come from Eicha, the Book of Lamentations, which we read on Tisha B'Av, on that other fast day when we mourn the destruction of the temple and our exile. And it expresses our longing to return to the days of old. Hashivenu v'nashuva means return us to you, God, and we shall return. And both words have shuv in it, the root of the word teshuva, to turn and return, spiraling towards change for the better. Kadesh Yamenu, make new our days, kekedem, as of old. And this phrase has drawn so many questions. How do we make new as in the days of old? Which is it? Is it renewal or is it a return to the old ways? What longing is this beautiful prayer expressing? Is it longing for the good old days when society was perfect, like the Garden of Eden? No challenges, no problems, just innocence and peace? Is it a yearning to return to the temple times in Jerusalem when people showed their devotion with animal sacrifices and poor people were allowed to starve to death in the streets? A mythical good old days here in the U.S., when colleges imposed strict quotas for Jews, women were subservient, and people of color drank from different water fountains? No. Jews have suffered far too much to have sentimental fantasies about some idealized past. Rather, Chadesh Yamenu is a yearning for renewal after our lives and the world have suddenly turned upside down. We ask to be renewed with our lives, our souls, and our beautiful traditions intact. We may have to change. We may have to adjust, as we are doing right now. But the essence of what matters most remains over and over again in the spiral that is life, Chadesh Yamenu, a new day. Not a repetition of the good times, but a sunrise on a new era of learning and growing, a new burst of courage and resilience to face a new battery of daunting challenges and emerge into a changed and, we hope, better world. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yemeinu kekedem. As we begin this new year, I wish you the renewal of strength, courage, resilience, and a drawing on our sacred teachings and history and community to sustain you through whatever challenges you seek out and whatever the coming year brings. Gemar Hatima Tova, May you and your families and this whole community and world be sealed for goodness.